Okay, so last time we were working here in Illustrator, and I was showing you some of the basics of the pen tool and how to go from a path that's made up of all corner points and to convert those anchors into curves. Now once you have a little bit of practice with this tool, you can actually skip one of those steps. So I'll bring up the pen, and in this case, instead of making single clicks, I'll start off by holding and dragging the mouse. So I'm going to cut right to the tangency handle. You'll notice that I need to remember which direction I'm heading in, so in this case I pulled to the right. Here I'll pull down, left, up, and so forth. And when I come over here to finish, I'm going to have to drag that one again. So one of them I have to sort of do double duty on. Doesn't look super hot, but of course we know how to use these editing tools. So now I can come back in here, move the location of my anchors, change the magnitude of those tangents, and also change the angle of those tangents. So those are the basics. Now, this doesn't seem like a very interesting way to make a circle, and sure enough, there are tools that just do that automatically and perfectly while holding Shift like so. So the reason that we're really interested in this is to make lines that follow complex shapes. So let's close out this window. I'm just going to go to File and Open, and then on the desktop I've prepared an image called skull.tiff. You're going to be able to download this from Moodle if you're taking my class. So automatically the document is resized to the same size as my raster image, and this is crucial, right? This is an image that was taken with a digital camera and of course manipulated a little bit afterwards to take the background out. But this is a pixel dependent image. So of course as we zoom in, we'll see that the image is made up of a discrete set of pieces of information, and the more I zoom in, the more I reveal those individual picture elements or pixels. By contrast, our vector graphics won't lose any quality as we zoom in because they're scalable based on math, and that's part of the benefit. So effectively we're going to convert this skull by re-illustrating it, convert it from a pixel dependent image into a pixel independent image. So to prepare our work, I'll go up into the Layers window, and if you don't see it, it's under Window and Layers. Make sure that's checked. And I can see here that there's a little arrow that drops down all of the contents of this layer called Skull Image, and right now it just contains the image itself. I'll click on this box to lock the image, and then that way, if I press V for the black arrow, I can't accidentally move it if I click and drag. So that's an important first step. Next up, I'm going to hit P for pen, or potentially I can click Z for zoom, and then click a couple times to zoom in, P for pen. Now let's convert our simple ideas about illustrating something like a circle to something more complex like the edges of this skull. One thing that you often want to look for when starting a graphic is a corner. So you can see right here, we know that corners are nice and simple. I just click there once, and then that will give me a point with no curvature in it. To set up this line, I should also come in and make my fill transparent. That's this red dash. And then the stroke, which is the color of the line itself, black's fine, but if I double click it, sometimes I like to make it a really bright color that shows up well against the existing graphic. I can also, over here in the stroke window, make my weight thicker so it's easier to see. Okay, so a single click here gives me a corner anchor. And then I can start to illustrate this subtle dip, right? So I head in this direction, now I come back out and choose a new position for my anchor, like so. So this is one way to go about it. Right now I can see my tangents and my anchors. If I click off of them with the white arrow, I'll see in relatively short order I've got a really nice smooth line that picks up some of those details without having to have a fancy Wacom tablet or other pieces of equipment. P for pen. As I hover near the place where this path started, well, I may have to highlight it first to get this to work. So the white arrow, highlight my points, P for pen, and then click here to reconnect to that line. Then I can capture this little sort of horn of bone that makes up the edge of the jaw, and we can continue on with that illustration. Now, if you're still a little bit uncomfortable with getting this done, you can still just make anchor points that are corners, and then come back through and complicate them with the Convert Point tool. But as soon as you can, you want to get out of that habit because it's just extra work. So I'll go ahead and do that example one more time. This is kind of a corner, so I'll leave it alone. And so on. Now in some cases we'll see that we need to come back and use our white arrow for other manipulations, such as moving the location of an anchor or changing its magnitude and so forth. Z and holding Alt to zoom back out. Okay, so this is really just practice at this point. You want to go ahead at the very least, depending on your comfort level, and illustrate the entire perimeter of the skull. Get some good practice in there. And then at least rough out both eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And the mouth, you know, depending on how you go about it, and the whole skull for that matter, has a ton of detail on it. So if it's a lot of work for you just to get a little bit done, I should say I was holding the space bar there in order to pan the view. If it's a ton of work just to get a little bit done, just make sure that everything has at least a basic outline or a contour, kind of like a cartoon. But if you're feeling a lot better, you should really get in here and start to do some shading. And in the third video, I'll show you how to use the Pathfinder to make some nice complex shading.